Hello, hello, and welcome to the Smart Elections Election Protection Forum. I am Lulu Freista. I am going to give you my visual description right now because we like to encourage people of all persuasions to join us, including people with visual disabilities. And so I am the executive director and founder or co-founder of Smart Elections. This is our election protection forum. And I am a very pale woman who just recently got a little bit of sun, so I got a little bit of color and have dark brown hair. It's quite long, and I'm in a green blouse with a brick wall behind me. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce our ASL interpreter. We're going to have two interpreters this evening, and the first one is Miriam Lerner. Miriam, welcome. Thank you so much for being with us. We're so grateful for you.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm happy to provide service. I am an older woman with hair that's mixed gray and brown. I have blue eyes. I'm wearing a black shirt, and behind me is a blue wall. Thank you.
Super. And our ASL interpreters are courtesy of the Sign Language Connection at the Center for Disability Rights. We love working with them. And I think I can bring on Alana at this point, who is going to be our other interpreter switching out. So Alana, go ahead and say hello and give your visual description.
Hello. Thanks for inviting us. I am a white woman. I've got brown hair that's tied up. I've got a headset, glasses, and a kind of like a gray beige background with a black shirt.
Super.
Thank
We'll
you.
see you later on. Okay. And our co-host Benny is here. Benny, I'm going to get you in with us. And thank you so much for being here this evening. Do you want to do your visual description?
Yeah, I'm a old black guy with low hair.
So not true. Come on now. If people can't see you, they don't know that's a joke.
Right. Male black, low haircut, and I'm wearing a shirt that will probably make somebody dizzy. It's got some kind of pattern on it.
Not nearly as dizzy as that cityscape behind you.
That is Memphis, Tennessee, and I'm sorry, but that's what's on there now.
Okay, that is going to be quite distracting.
I'll figure out how to turn it off in a second.
He's got all kinds of trees and rivers and pictures of all kinds of
That's
stuff.
right. It's Memphis skyline. That's the bridge. I love
It's
it.
beautiful. Okay, so we have really interesting forum for you this evening. We are going to be focusing on misinformation and how to vet your information, how to really pay attention to what you're consuming in terms of media and other sources, and make sure that what you're looking at and reading is and watching and listening to is accurate and is something that is going to help you make good decisions and not be misled by something that really isn't truthful. And we have a really excellent guest with us this evening, Virginia Martin, PhD, who is a former election commissioner, has a tremendous amount of experience in the election space, and we are quite lucky to have her here to share her really valuable experience with us. So I hope you're going to stay with us. And the first thing that I want to do is just talk a little bit about what people think of as misinformation and where I personally am finding misinformation, which is now in places that really is starting to surprise me and even shocked me a little bit. I've really been stunned at where I've been finding misinformation. And so I think what people are really used to thinking about in terms of misinformation is the Stop the Steal movement and the accusations that the 2020 election was not, that the results of the 2020 election were not correct, that the election was rigged. These are all accusations that were put forward by President Trump. And as far as we can tell, there is no validity to them. There hasn't been any evidence that the election had any wide scale fraud. And so people are sort of used to now assuming that that is the misinformation, and people call it the big lie. And we'll spend a little time on that. I think it's important to be aware of that and where that information is spreading. But we're also going to talk about other places where we've been finding misinformation, including mainstream sources like CNN or the Washington Post, which is very concerning when you're used to looking at those sources and thinking, these are mainstream media sources and I can really rely on the information that I find here to find really the depth of some of the inaccuracies is very troubling. So that's an overview of what we're going to do this evening. And let's just tell you a little bit about ourselves. We are Smart Elections, and Smart Elections is a nonpartisan nonprofit. We are dedicated to elevating election reform to an urgent national priority, and our forte is election security. I'm an election security journalist by trade. And Benny, do you want to introduce yourself, give a little background?
Yes, I am a local technocrat, but also a Shelby County election commissioner. So I got a little bit of experience in technology and elections combined.
And that is also a somewhat underground.
I'm also a
famous.
technical advisor for Smart Elections.
You are,
That's
but
right. And I'm a part-time journalist for Smart Legislation.
and you've also been known to be a white hat hacker on certain occasions. Benny is really somewhat renowned for some of the programs that he has delved into in terms of voting machines, one in particular. So
Yeah, I managed to get in a little bit of trouble too.
it's a hat that he wears sometimes. And let's just tell you a little bit about how to get in touch with us or find out more about us. So we are at smartelections.us. That's our website if you want to learn more. And if you want to reach out to us, it's contact@smartelections.us. And we love to get any of your input. If you enjoyed the forum, if you learned something, please send us a positive email that says, hey, I really enjoyed the forum and this is why. Or you can even throw that into the comments in the chat and let us know why you really why you enjoyed the forum or what you learned, or if you had things that you really that things that you want to change or you want to make suggestions. Of course, we're really excited to hear those as well. And when you are at our website, we hope that you will sign up for our mailing list. It's right there on the front page. Just scroll down and there's a place to put your information in. And we will talk a little bit more about other ways that you can support us, like on our Facebook page or following us on Twitter and things like that. So we'll take a little break in the middle of the program to get you caught up on sort of social media programs. So the first thing that I want to do is just play a clip from a CNN interview with Mike Lindell. You familiar with Mike Lindell, Benny?
I am.
Bet you are. Do you want to say anything about him?
No, I don't sleep on his pillows.
So I want to actually sort of bring up some slides that I made to help us navigate this topic of misinformation. And so this is our fact versus fiction
Like that.
presentation. How can you spot misinformation? And one of the first things that we're going to say is diversify your news sources. So that means really try to not just get all of your news from one source or another. And you might think that if you're watching Rachel Maddow every night, you're really getting the full story. But I assure you that if MSNBC is your only source for information, there is a world of topics and points of view that you are not getting access to. And so the first thing that I want to do is actually just play a little montage. I made a documentary came out in 2008 actually about why people don't vote and participate. And one of the things that we explored was how hard it is to get good information to help you to participate. So before we get into the other stuff, I want to just start with this. So we're going to go ahead and play this video clip.
Increasingly in political campaigns, both sides dispute the facts, and that's very confusing to voters.
I would like to know what the senators and the representatives, what type of views they have.
Do you have any idea where you would go for that information?
No, actually I don't.
Go to sources that have historically been fair and accurate. League of Women Voters works very hard to accurately represent and be nonpartisan, as does factcheck.org.
And how hard is it staying informed?
It's not difficult.
I belong to mailing lists where information is sent out.
If I'm cooking dinner at night,
I'll turn on NPR.
I watch Fox News a lot. It's clear they're conservative.
For myself, I rely heavily on some of the news out of Britain.
There was a lot to consider on Tuesday.
Everyday Americans need a champion, and I want to be that champion.
After watching your commercials, I just don't want to vote. I don't get informed when I listen to them.
Read multiple newspapers. Newspapers over television, because there's more depth and there's more clear structure of what's happening.
Going to websites.
Project Vote Smart.
Go to the Congressional Budget Office to find out what does defense spending look like. Whitehouse.gov/OMB, Office of Management and Budget.
I'd watch the debates.
I can watch the flow on a blog where I see a bunch of emails from different people bouncing ideas back and forth.
You know, something comes up that somebody thinks is poignant and powerful, they're going to pass it on to other people.
Local issues, your school board meets once a month. Maybe go to your county meeting 1 month. Go to a school board meeting another month. Spend a little time watching C-SPAN 3 hours a month. You'd be better off.
Any questions from the public? Hearing none, let's go to the roll call.
So that's a little clip about diversifying your news sources and really trying to pull from a wide variety of sources to really get the full picture. Benny, do you want to add in anything there?
No, I think that one's pretty self-explanatory. I like those concise videos. The sources do matter. I will say that. And I became, like you, appalled at being able to look at news sources and watch how they veer more towards opinion than fact. And I'm in Memphis, Tennessee, and I'd never been to Elvis Presley's house, but I finally took a tour one year when my wife's mother came, and I went because she went. And Elvis Presley had 3 big tube TVs, and they was right next to each other. And I asked the tour guide, I said, why did he have 3 TVs? He said, because you had to watch 3 news channels at the same time if you wanted to get the truth. And that was in the 70s.
Yeah.
So that stuck with me.
Okay. So we're just going to move to our next point, which is to check with someone knowledgeable that you trust, which is, I think, always like sort of a good point of reference or outreach, because a lot of times I read something and I'm like, I don't know, doesn't quite seem right to me, but I'm not an expert. And so I try to find somebody who I know who is knowledgeable in that subject. So I'm going to give you an example of that right now. So, and this has to do with information about Mike Lindell. And I will say that I myself have been very skeptical of election results at different times in different elections. And so I wasn't really willing to take all of the sort of information saying that the Stop the Steal movement was absolutely fictitious, was a big lie. I kind of wanted something that I could rely on a little bit more personally. So this is what I did, just as one example. It's not the only thing I did. But there's this interview with CNN. They interviewed Mike Lindell. And I'm going to go ahead and play you sort of like the first 2 minutes of that so you can get a sense of, he is one of the main people sort of putting forward the idea that the 2020 election was rigged, that Trump actually won. This is what Democrats call the big lie. And this is his interview with CNN. So I think I can go ahead and I'm gonna, this is just a slide from that, just an image of that. But I'm going to actually pull up the interview, and we're just going to watch like 2 minutes of it. See if you're seeing that. Yeah. Okay. Let's take a look at this. And just going to make sure that we have the audio selected. Yes, we do. Okay. That's the last thing we want, is for you to be seeing it, but not filming it. Okay, here we go.
MyPillow's CEO Mike Lindell continues to claim he has evidence that China hacked U.S. voting systems and switched votes for the former president to Biden votes. In a moment, you'll hear what 24 election officials and cyber experts contacted by CNN say about those claims. Lindell is not backing down even as he faces a lawsuit from voting machine maker Dominion alleging he's defamed the company with false accusations, and Lindell's company is countersuing. CNN's Drew Griffin went to Minnesota to talk to Lindell about his claims that threaten democracy. Here's Drew's report.
The My Pillow guy.
Yes, the My Pillow guy is convinced China hacked the election, Donald Trump really won, and Lindell has the absolute proof.
They did it in all the states. Every
and they
single state.
changed the votes.
Every single state.
And you have the proof.
Yes.
That will show.
I have the whole data.
The actual exchange of votes.
Yep. 100%. 100%.
It is, of course, complete nonsense. Despite every piece of so-called evidence Lindell has presented so far, 3 videos, a lawsuit, screenshots he sent to CNN, there's still no proof that the election was hacked, and that's according to 24 cyber experts and election officials contacted by CNN.
100% evidence.
When Lindell released his so-called evidence in videos like this, fact checkers quickly found out it was evidence of nothing. These images are just publicly available voter data scrolling across the screen, not proof of election hacking. So Lindell changed his story, saying now the real evidence will be revealed at a cyber symposium, streamed live with My Pillow discounts available throughout. And as further proof, he sent CNN a preview, 6 different screenshots.
You sent us this on Friday.
Yeah.
What is this?
That's just one piece of 1.2 billion lines of data from the election. Okay. Within that will be timestamps of when it happened. There'll be flips in there.
So we sent this to our own experts. Mm-hmm. He said that it doesn't show any specific actions of any kind, election related or not. And it's proof of nothing.
Okay, so he said that's nothing, huh? Well, he's wrong. Then you didn't hire a cyber expert.
We didn't consult just one cyber expert. We consulted 9 top election security experts who told us Lindell's screenshots were extremely rudimentary metadata and completely ridiculous.
Okay, so I wanted to just watch that much. Ben, you got a huge smile on your face. And let's just also put up
Mike.
This input from people in the chat. Wait, Democrats call the big lie. Everybody was not, but Trump calls it the big lie. I don't know if everybody calls it the big lie. A lot of people call it the big lie.
Yeah, I don't call it the big lie.
I don't particularly feel comfortable with that. I think I do think that there's a falsehood there, that they're putting forward false information. But
all right.
I think there's I don't know. I think it's accurate to say that Democrats in general call it the big lie, and some other people do as well. But that's not what I want to focus on. What I want to focus on is the experts that they checked in with there. And so this was just going back to my second point, which is check in with people that you trust who are knowledgeable. So I saw that they had checked in with Rich DeMillo. And so I thought, okay, Rich DeMillo is somebody that I know and I actually text with Rich on a pretty regular basis. So I texted Rich and I said to Rich, hey, Rich, was there any possible validity to Lindell's data in your opinion? And Professor DeMillo replied, nope, exclamation point. And I said, thanks so much. Needed to have it direct from you. So here, this is just one of the points that I'm talking about, which is check in with somebody knowledgeable that you trust. Don't necessarily just base your opinion on a particular news source. So I think that's a pretty straightforward concept, pretty straightforward piece of advice. Benny, you want to weigh in on that one?
Yeah, poor Mike. Like, I think his heart was in the right place. I just think that he was so new to this part of the world and elections, and a lot of really opportunistic people. He's a billionaire. A lot of opportunistic people got in front of him and probably really exploited him. We worked with DeMillo, so a screenshot of some black screens like the Matrix, nobody at face value is going to think that that's of any value. So I could see, even though I'm not as good of an expert as DeMillo, Professor Rich is, that's just not. It's unfortunate, but I don't call it a big lie. There is probably a considerable amount of there. even if it's not fraud, it's definitely there in error. So to go 100% away fraud, 100% in the direction of fraud, and 100% in the direction of purest election ever, this, come on, like nothing is 100%.
Right. And I think that's what we're trying to get into this evening is nuance and to really try to parse things so that you can try to land up in a spot where you're really comfortable that the information that you are taking in and sharing is something you believe is accurate. And so, and I see we got Rich with us. Rich Grella is a terrific advocate, works with POV Philly. And yes, all very reputable people listed there. Absolutely, Alex.
Hey, Rich, I'm coming to Philly.
Barbara Simons from Verified Voting, who were able to look at that data. And I have to imagine that CNN gave them full access to more than just the screenshots, but whatever metadata was presented, and all came back and said that really there's nothing here. So we're comfortable with that. But then let's go ahead and take a look at something where I think many of us would be surprised, where a mainstream media outlet is not coming up with accurate information. And this is an article in the Washington Post that had a tremendous amount of misinformation about hand counts. And what's happened, and I think this is really unfortunate, is that the Republicans, in their concern that the election was not accurate, have asked now for hand counts in a lot of states. They're asking for full hand counts. And rather than the Democrats saying, you know, what part of that request is reasonable, they are simply trying to disparage and say negative things about hand counts now. And there are many of us in the election security community who believe that hand counts are a very valuable tool in getting to accurate election results. And the idea of just disparaging hand counts and hand count audits is something that is tremendously concerning to me personally. And I think this kind of like knee-jerk reaction from the mainstream and liberal press to just a backlash against hand counts is actually very dangerous and risky. And it's also risky in that we start not knowing where we can trust and our information, where is accurate information available. So I'm going to show this Washington Post article. I'll actually show you just like, let's see, let's pull it up here. And then we're going to look at a particular, there was so much misinformation. I don't even have time to go through all the information, but I'm going to go through some of it because it's concerning. So this is an article that it came out, I believe, in April of this year. And the title is why hand counting ballots is such a bad idea. Already a title that I'm really worried about. So there we've got our article. Just make sure that you're getting to see it. No, you're seeing something else still. Let's stop that and see if we can get this Washington Post article up. Try again. There we go. Okay. You're seeing it now, Benny?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this is an article, came out in April. And even from the beginning with the corrections, you can tell that they're in trouble. So for starters, I'm not kidding you. In the correction, it says an earlier version of this story stated that after the 2020 election, Georgia performed an audit by randomly selecting ballots across the state, and that the process took 2 weeks. So actually, that's what they said to begin with. But their correction is officials reviewed all ballots statewide. That's what actually happened, not randomly selected ballots, all ballots statewide. And the process took less than a week. This
Yeah, because it was a 1%
Okay.
risk limit on audit, which means count everything.
The Secretary of State actually said we're just going to do 100%
Right. Yep.
full hand count audit. And I think just for starters, if you were following the Georgia hand count audit at all, you knew that they counted every single
They
ballot.
counted every, yeah.
They counted 5 million ballots. It took less than a week. So for starters, if your final article came out by saying that they They
Then you
did
went through embargo, fact checking, legal, editing. You went through
right,
8.
and your end result was to come up with the idea that that they spot checked the ballots, and it took 2 weeks. Obviously, you weren't following the topic. So right from the beginning, I was a little bit concerned about this article, and then when you get into it, so the article starts by talking about Lindell and his movement, the Stop the Steal movement. There's a small but forceful push in right-wing circles to have ballots in upcoming elections entirely counted by hand. Lawmakers in at least 6 states have proposed switching to hand-counted paper ballots, and that's from another Washington Post article that they're linking to. They're linking to their own reporting there. And then they go on to say the ideas derived from accusations made out of whole cloth that the 2020 election was stolen, that we're talking about, you know, the Stop the Steal movement, and that voting machines are easily hacked and can't be trusted. Now, I'm just going to start by saying voting machines are easily hacked and they can't be trusted. And the people who say that are election security experts who have hacked them, for example, at DEF CON, and who computer scientists who say they can't be trusted because they know how to
who
program
also
them.
said that Mike Lindell didn't have anything.
Right, exactly. So the same people that you're relying on to say that the election was not stolen are the same people who are also telling you that this other thing you're saying is not true. So this article is trying to say that it's not true that voting machines are easily hacked and can't be trusted, but that actually is false. And then they go on, and I'm going to just take a little time and talk about this one particular thing that they say. They talk about how we count ballots now. And they, I'm going to go here, but the voting process does not entirely rely on machines. The machines create a paper copy of a ballot for officials to keep. And after election, officials review a statistically significant portion of those ballots by hand to make sure the results mirror what the machines got. The process has been in place for decades and it works. So now I read that and I was like, what? Because that's an ideal. That's how we'd like things to do. We wish that they were doing audits. This says that they're doing audits after elections. That means after all elections. After elections, officials review a statistically significant portion of those ballots by hand to make sure that their results mirror what the machines got. That is what we have been asking for over a decade. And this is just like a fantasy. This is saying that that process is in place and that it works. So again, I didn't just rely on my own historical knowledge, although I know that this isn't true, but I went ahead and I sent an email to, again, asking someone knowledgeable that I trust, Philip Stark, who is a professor at the University of California, Berkeley. He's actually considered the inventor of risk limiting audits and is possibly one of the most knowledgeable people. I mean, without question, he's one of the most knowledgeable people in the country about auditing. So I sent him this paragraph about how these statistically significant portion of the ballots are being reviewed by hand. And Philip sent me such a long article, like such a long response about all the problems with the statement that I'm going to go ahead and put it in the chat. Let's see. This is the link to Stark's response, so you can read the whole thing. What are you laughing at, Benny?
That's Phil.
Well, I think he can also be very brief, but in this particular case, he had
I think he knew he needed to go in on it, and he did.
So one of the points he made: most states do not routinely audit election results against the paper trail, contrary to what Washington
so true.
Post article said. Are you guys auditing in Shelby County?
We do not. We have a whole section devoted to it, and we don't do it.
Okay, and I'm in New York, and although we are supposed to be auditing, and I guess technically we are auditing 3% of the machines, the audits are actually set up in a way that they are meaningless because they are never escalated. If they just count 3% either by hand or by another machine, and then they call it quits because of a sort of complicated setup, which is that both of the people involved in the audit, the Democrat and the Republican, both have to agree to audit further. And since one of them won, that one who won the election is never going to agree to audit further. So the election audit never goes further than 3%. And then also, Phil pointed out that risk limiting audits did not exist before 2007. So this statement that this process has been in place for decades is complete fiction. And then I went further and I said to Phil, is there any state that is required to conduct routine risk limiting audits in every election on all contested races? And he said none that I know of.
Yeah.
So this article by the Washington Post is a complete fiction. And there's actually so many, I just want to go through before we bring our guest on. I want to point out just a few of the other falsities in this article, because again, to me, it was really concerning that that a media outlet that most of us consider reliable, like the Washington Post, is giving us such problematic information. So I'm gonna, I'm gonna share this document. This is Philip's full response, and I'm just checking that you're actually seeing that. Yeah, and
Yep, we can see.
okay, and you can see that he wrote quite a bit. He wrote like 7 different points. And then I went through the article and started to pinpoint other things that are just demonstrably false. So for example, I pointed out this about they're really relying on the idea that voting machines have been proven safe and accurate. Voting machines have been demonstrated to make many mistakes, actually, and be hackable, and their accuracy depends on their programming and the lack of mechanical or digital errors. They talk about how voters either fill out a paper ballot and then feed it into a machine, or they make their choice on a touchscreen machine that prints a paper ballot. But in fact, they do not even mention that there are still states and counties that vote entirely on computer with no paper ballots, AKA Shelby County, right?
Shelby County. Yep,
Okay,
that's right.
Right.
And I would add that in Tennessee, we have a statute that says we have automatic mandatory audits of voter verified paper ballots.
Right, but they're still not doing it.
Right.
Right. Here, and they talk about the Arizona audit, which was problematic. And they counted all 2 million ballots in Maricopa County by hand. And it did take a long time. So they were saying that if they had to count all the ballots, it would likely take months as well. Keeping in mind that the people who conducted that audit in Arizona were amateurs who had never counted ballots by hand previously. People with
And the other part
experience.
is it isn't the same number of people, because you would do it at the precinct level, and that would be very small. So they were missing probably 500,000 people.
All kinds of ways that you could do it. There's also, and I'll just, I think I'll talk, and I think actually I get into that. So here, where they talk about how hand counting, they say, opens up a lot of room for mistakes. So people need to be trained to count ballots by hand like any other skill. Some people are better at it than others, and there are tools like spreadsheets, overhead projectors, and clickers that help tremendously. So there's a lot of research that's been done now to really speed up the hand counting process. In Wisconsin, they developed this really great method where they take a overhead projector and they put the paper ballot large on a screen so everybody in the room can see it. And then they have people with clickers who each are assigned to click for a particular candidate. So if it votes for Benny, those people click for that. And if it votes for me, those clicker people would click for that. And if you do like 50 ballots in a row and you compare, if you got the same results, then you write those down as accurate and move on. And if you get, like, you have a couple people on the clickers, I don't know, I'm sort of moving through this pretty fast, but this is just to say there are all kinds of systems that have been developed and are in place to really do hand counts efficiently and accurately now. We're going to talk to Virginia Martin about some of that. So
I got a message from Alana.
Okay, so we're gonna switch our interpreters here. Alana, you're ready to go? No, she said no, but she's gonna do it anyway.
Ready to switch.
Wait, okay, Miriam's coming back. Okay, you got to work for your money here, Miriam. Keep going.
Go for it.
I hope, are we talking too fast? Okay, all right. So
I learned something.
I wanted to get a comment from the chat here. This is a really interesting point from Susan Shamlin. I'm frustrated by the idea being forth by my Board of Elections that auditing one item on the ballot assures that there are no issues or problems with any races on the ballot.
Yeah.
This is especially disturbing when it is known before the election what race will be audited. And that is a big no-no in auditing. If you're really trying to have an accurate audit, you don't telegraph or pick ahead of time what's going to be audited, because
That's also like that's like not knowing what's at stake in elections. Sheriff, district attorney, and the mayor, all this power and authority, and you say we're going to audit the local treasury department? Like,
right. There's a lot of different ways around really auditing carefully. So I think when we get Virginia on, we can get more into this. So I just want to, there was one other thing that really disturbed me about the Washington Post article that I want to mention, is that they started sort of conflating the idea of filling out ballots by hand with counting ballots by hand. And these are two totally separate functions. And there was a good deal of consensus in the election security community that if possible, if someone is physically able and comfortable to fill a ballot out by hand, that is the most secure method to use. And this Washington Post article started also talking negatively about hand-marked paper ballots. So this is really just a very, very problematic article. And we also saw a similar article in CNN. So this whole idea of questioning hand-marking paper ballots and hand-counting paper ballots is really proliferating in the mainstream media. It's very, very problematic. So I think that gives you some ideas about how to, vet your information. And let's bring our guest on, Virginia Martin. It's really a delight to have you here. And welcome.
Why, thank you. Hi, Lulu. Hi, Benny.
Hi,
Miriam.
Virginia. I have somebody been asking me for your number. I need to get it.
Okay.
Give it to them. I need to give your permission to give it to them.
Okay, we'll talk.
Virginia's very popular.
Yes, she is.
So I think you've been watching. Do you want to just weigh in so far on this Washington Post article and kind of like how I think maybe more pulling back in an overview of how we're in this environment now where we really don't know who to trust. We're not quite sure when we're looking at our news sources what we can believe.
Yeah, well, in terms of election security, I think we've always found that even mainstream media has not been really good at reporting what the state of security is in elections and also what's possible. I mean, I've had a really hard time. I tried for a long time to get the word out about what we did in our little county, Columbia County, New York, and it was really hard getting anybody to talk about it. Like almost impossible. So they're not talking about that. And what we did in Columbia County was we didn't go to just hand counting and no machines. We used the machines. Actually, we had to by law, but we also hand counted everything that we wanted to hand count, which was a lot. And it was a wonderful marriage of two technologies, one, advanced, and one, very hands-on. You can call it Luddite if you like, but it works. And it's something that people can understand. Everybody can understand. Everybody can trust. And you compare the two and you wind up with an election, a race that's counted where everybody, in particular the losers, know that they lost because they saw it. They saw the evidence. That's an evidence-based election. And the mainstream media are not talking about it. And you're right, these articles in the Washington Post just kind of confuse everything.
I think it's a good point that you brought up, that we've had this problem for years about trying to get election security reported accurately in the press. I will say there's a few reporters that I always turn to that I absolutely trust. Kim Sater.
Yep.
Or I'm not sure how she says her name, but it's Cetter.
Yes.
And Sue Halpern, who writes for the New Yorker. There's a couple good reporters at the AP, and Politico can do a pretty good job. Eric, is it Geller or Gellen?
I don't know.
At Politico. I think he does a really good job. So I think there are reporters that you can turn to, but it's good to sort of check in with those people that you trust who are going to be careful and accurate. So let's just talk about the CNN article and kind of what your experience was with that, because it was similar.
Yeah, so the title on the CNN article was "The Horse and Buggy Era, Attacks on Voting Machines Set Off Fresh Worries About Election Subversion." And now I just use the term Luddite, but I was kind of joking, but I was also kind of, saying that's not necessarily bad. But this is clearly they're going after this. They're going after this and saying, "Oh no, we don't want to go back to that. We want to stay modern. We want to stay modern. We want to use machines. We want to trust machines. Ballots are too hard to hand count." It's kind of astonishing because you don't have to do one or the other.
Here's the article. I got the article up for you. So, and this article basically had some really similar points to the Washington Post article, which was just basically really saying negative things about hand counting, basically, saying that it would wildly impractical, dangerous for democracy. Hand counting ballots, dangerous for democracy. And I think what's excellent is Virginia wrote a really great a great letter to CNN and let them know that she had really done this in an efficient and cost-effective way for years. And do you want to just maybe highlight a few sentences from your letter, Virginia?
Sure. I kind of start out by saying hand counting ballots was described by a source as soul crushing. No, I'll tell you what soul crushing is. Soul crushing is when the election never really seems to end because nobody's shown the losers unassailable evidence that they lost.
Yep.
That's soul crushing, and it doesn't have to be that way. What's more, as I said, why are people talking about hand counting instead of using voting machines? They should use them both. Use them both to their best advantage and hand count until you have convinced the losers that they lost.
Absolutely. And so here we put Virginia's letter online as well. And I think we're getting a little bit of feedback. I'm not quite sure why. Response to CNN. And I just thought it was so excellent that you did that. And Benny, do you want to weigh in about this particular article or kind of Virginia's response that it doesn't have to be one or the other?
No, I like it. I say the same thing. I use the term Luddite, though I sit in front of a bunch of screens. I think it's an idea whose time has come. This particular part of elections should be down to the simplest form.
Yeah, and I really think it's important that we bring these distinctions forward to people. So we do carefully vet our news sources and we do push back. One of the things that's great about the CNN article was that Virginia didn't just grumble about it. She wrote a letter proactively, and you got a response actually from the reporter, right?
I did. I don't think she's done anything with it, but I'm hopeful. And I think I may follow up again and, see if she's got some more interest.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to follow up with Washington Post because I found their article so upsetting. So I think these are really important points is make sure that if you are finding misinformation, go ahead and speak up about it. Let other people know there's misinformation. Let the source know that you're frustrated, that they are putting out misinformation. And we can add our slides back in. And so we've gotten through all of this. Do your own research. So really talk to, go on the internet or look at websites that you think are reliable and see what you can find in terms of doing that research. This is the letter that Virginia sent. And I thought this was really great. Virginia was able to give us some of her tips on how she vets information. Do you want to walk us through these, Virginia?
Sure. If you're looking at, you're probably looking at your information online, I'm assuming. So think about the website that you're going to, and if it's a .gov site or a .edu site, they're probably a bit more credible because they all have standards, and we know that they have standards and they have to live up to their standards. If it's a commercial site, well, you know, all bets are off. So, and some of them are going to be fine, but you don't know that yet. You want to look into the author's credentials and experience on that particular topic. Take a look at the website, read the about page, look at the staff, who's on the staff, what is the mission. Are there footnotes and links provided in the article? If they're not, boy, I don't trust it. You know, if somebody's making a statement to me, I want to be able to look at it and compare it to what they're saying. You know, have they spun it or have they misrepresented it entirely? You're going to confirm the facts with sources that are credible. What is the tone? Is it sensational? Well, then, you know, maybe the writer has a good reason to be sensational, but really take that with a grain of salt. Is the information balanced or is it partisan? And are at least two sides presented? We didn't see that, you know, certainly not in the CNN article. I don't think in the Washington Post article either.
No, there was no other side presented whatsoever.
Right. And I will say that I hardly ever get asked for comments. Occasionally.
What do you mean you hardly ever get asked for comments?
From the media, mainstream media. You know, I've got a lot to say. I've said a lot, but do they call me and say, what do you think about this claim? And I would tell them.
Right. And Virginia is somebody with a tremendous amount of experience. She hand counted ballots every election for 10 years. So she's a tremendous amount of experience on this. Yes.
35 elections, hundreds of thousands of ballots.
Right. So we really are hoping that media will reach out to people who have some experience with hand counts if they're going to be covering this. And I am going to go ahead and put the slide set link in the chat. So if you're all the slides that I've been showing, they have links to all these different articles and as well as the response from Philip North and from Virginia. And then Virginia had also given us this really kind of cool website to look at.
Yeah, I got my advanced degrees in communication and rhetoric, and we used to consult or look reference to the online writing lab at Purdue. Boy, I'm getting a lot of feedback. Are you too?
I am too. I'm actually doing an experiment. Benny, I'm muting your mic because I suspect that because you're not on headset, we're getting the feedback from you. When I muted your mic, we lost the feedback. Do you have a headset, Benny, by any chance? I turned your mic off.
That's a dog barking.
That is not the feedback. That is separate. That is the Siberian Huskies that my neighbors have decided that they absolutely have to have 3 Siberian Huskies in the middle of Brooklyn.
Yeah, that's what I hear.
No, that's not the feedback. The feedback is separate. But I think it's calmed down now since I muted your mic for a second. But tell us about this website.
Okay, so the OWL, it's called, gives an example of distinguishing between fact and opinion and propaganda. And this is what they say. Here's a fact. The Purdue OWL was launched in 1994. Good. Here's an opinion. The Purdue OWL is the best website for writing help. Here's propaganda. Some students have gone on to lives of crime after using sites that compete with the Purdue OWL. The Purdue OWL is clearly the only safe choice for student writers. So the point is, when you're reading something, you know, how is it presented? Is it presented as fact? Does it look like fact? Does it look like opinion? Does it look like propaganda? And you can assess these things, but be careful to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I've muted myself to try to keep you from hearing those Siberian Huskies.
Some hostages you got in the back.
So I believe this is the Purdue Online Writing Lab that I've managed to pull up here. And that link is also in the slide set that I provided. And I think I can manage to get that into the chat as well. So any other final words for us, Virginia, in terms of kind of not even necessarily about election security information, but just kind of helping people navigate this time when the elections are so contentious and it seems like things are getting more and more tense. How do we really try to communicate with each other in a way that, you know, dials down the volume, dials down the rhetoric, and really tries to focus on more of evidence-based communication that can reach across partisan lines? That's always our goal here. We're trying to really build bridges.
Yeah, well, one thing I would say is let's stop using the term conspiracy theory. I really hate that term. Whenever I see that term used, my, you know, red flags go up. And there are some assertions that are true conspiracy theory. You know, there's no evidence behind them, but there are some theories that are out there that are, you know, that appear to be conspiracies, and there may be some evidence to them. When anybody, including mainstream media, starts throwing around the term conspiracy theory too liberally and as if it's fact, which these articles did, when they start doing that, you know, my back goes up and I say, "Whoa, I don't know about that."
That is a really interesting point. I noticed that in 2016, the conspiracy theory kind of like made a sort of like comeback on mainstream media because they were concerned that there was a conspiracy from the Russians to impact the election, to illegitimately affect the election. And all of a sudden, they weren't using the term conspiracy theory. They were using more like these are actual, you know, the election was impacted. We did have election interference, not a conspiracy. Whereas now, since it's Trump's team and the
Big lie.
Republicans, now it's the big lie. Now it's the conspiracy.
And Russia wasn't interested this year.
I agree that the language can be very partisan, and it really does tend to depend on who's asking the question, whether or not they get a negative kind of label.
Yeah, and you know, that divides people. I mean, we don't want to divide people further. We're divided enough already. We ought to be able to talk to both sides. And that's something you're really good about promoting. Lulu was talking about both sides. I mean, in an election board environment, we have to be able to work with the other side. We have to be able to talk to both sides. So we don't go throwing around terms like conspiracy theory at the people we're trying to work with. And we shouldn't be doing that out in the real world either. It's just not going to get us anywhere. What we need to do is figure out how we can run evidence-based elections. We're not going to get there if we're always, you know, calling other people names.
Absolutely. I think that's a great point. Benny, any points that you want to take away from this?
No, I like when Virginia talks.
You can look at your phone.
Okay, Virginia, you get the last word on that then. I love that, you know, trying to non-judgmental language, evidence-based elections, or great point that Virginia made about it's not hand counting or machines. We're using all the tools that we have together to try to get those accurate, transparent results that will give the public confidence. So that's the direction that we're headed in. And we hope that that can, you know, really become much more of a mainstream goal, is to really work collaboratively with all the tools that we have available to us. So thank you so much for being here. It's really been a delight to have you with us, as always.
Nice to be here.
And for people who want to read her full letter, I did put that link into the chat, as well as the PDF slides that also have the link to the letter. So thanks again for all of your wonderful, wonderful work, Virginia.
Thank you, Virginia.
Thank you, Benny. Thank you, Lulu.
Okay. So we just need to do a little bit of our information to you about smart elections and let you know there's lots of different ways that you can support us. You can sign up and like or share our social media posts, and we are in a lot of different social media channels, and you are our PR machine. We don't have, you know, a massive budget to hire a PR firm. So do give us some love on social media. We are at @smart_elections on Twitter. We're on Facebook as Smart Elections. and I will put the link to Facebook in the chat. So you can just go over there and give us a big heart and let us know that, let everybody know that you like our site. And we also would love it for you to follow the channel on YouTube. We're also on TikTok, on LinkedIn. So there's lots of places to find us and give us support. And then we also bring your friends to the forum. If you get the emails, go ahead and just forward those to your friends. I think everybody's pretty much in the swing of it now. The forums are once a month on the last Tuesday, no, the fourth Tuesday of the month. And so the next one is actually going to be that fourth Tuesday. So this one is a little bit different. It's this one was rescheduled from last month. So we have one today and we're going to have one in 2 weeks. Benny, I muted your mic again. For some reason, we're getting feedback. And I think it's just that we have to get on earbuds. I'm sorry, but anytime that you want to talk, just wave at me and I'll unmute you.
I have the same mic every time.
I know, but we're getting feedback. So the next forum is going to be on July 26th, and I hope that you will sign up for that one. And you can go to the Mobilize site right now. I'll put that into the chat and sign up for the July 26th forum here. 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 4 p.m. Pacific Time. And then you can always watch the other YouTube forums that we've had before. Do you want to talk about that, Benny?
They are in the links below. There's a lot of good content in it, and there are about to be some landslide elections and crazy accusations in Shelby County and throughout the state of Tennessee. So this is a good time to practice what you learn.
What is happening? Fill us in.
There are more than 70 seats in a single election in Shelby County, and we are already being told that it may take hours before we have the first results because of our failing and ailing machines.
And is there any chance that you could count some of those ballots by hand? Or it's just
No,
because, yeah, so there is no paper ballot.
I don't know what the time crunch is, but I'm sure there's something there. I mean, but
what did you say? You don't know what?
I don't know what the timing would be. It's all on the machine. I voted 60 times in one machine. It's still one record. If I vote one time, it's one record. If I vote 60 times, it's one record because it's per voter.
Right. You're just saying it's somewhat.
I'm struggling to see what and it may be printing the receipts and
oh,
I'm sure
I see.
Our administrator has some reason for it to take more time. But
you don't understand why they're saying that the election is going to take so long to count, because it's just a printout, whether it's thousands and thousands of votes or a few dozen votes, it's a printout.
But this is the election year that everything changed. 2014. This is when I'm 8 years back from when I became interested. This is the election that made me pay attention.
You mean in terms of the cycle? These are the officers that are up to bat.
Oh, 2014 was when I thought elections could be bad. When I thought that it was possible for someone to do something nefarious in the election. That's when I became a believer in 2014.
Well, that was because you researched the voting equipment and you did actually.
It was after the 2014 election that I felt that the elections needed to be looked at. And
right,
this is the next cycle that is the same election cycle. It's an 8-year cycle.
Right. And the reason, just be clear to people, because not everybody knows your history. The reason why you were concerned about the election was because you got access through public records request to the actual software program, and you created a proof of concept that showed that the elections could be counted in a way that changed results using fractions. And so
And that
you had
that
every reason
suspicion,
to doubt.
that suspicion was this election here.
Right.
I
So
became suspicious after this type of election.
the election of the people who are up for office, who
Yes.
are running for office now. So
Yes.
it's come full cycle in terms
Yeah,
of
it's the next cycle.
who's up. But you're an election commissioner now instead of somebody who's just questioning the results. So now,
Correct. I got completely involved.
do you have more confidence in what's going to happen
I do
in
not.
these results? You do not.
No.
So what are you doing, or what are you going to be doing?
As a election commissioner, I'm establishing measures. I'm making sure we follow the law, and I'm going to be very active and make sure I participate in every process, every part of the process of the election.
But you're not following the law because you've told us straight up that they're supposed to be auditing.
I may do. I'm be doing some press conferences this time around. Like I'm much more involved this time around.
So you're going to go to the press and point out that Shelby County is not auditing the way that they're legally required to audit.
I'm not. I don't know that we're not going to do it this time, but I'm going to be a lot more vocal this time.
I mean, how can you audit when all of the results are on the computer? What is there to audit?
We still have paper ballots, so I'm going to make sure that we're applying the law when it comes to paper ballots. We still have absentee voting.
Absentee ballots are on
We have
paper, so those
absentee
could
voting.
be audited.
They can be audited.
Okay, and you could also at least do some type of audit of the actual digital printouts, right?
Yeah, we're supposed to compare the poll tapes to the tabulated results. So
And are they doing that?
they are not.
Okay, so you're going to be pressuring them to do those
That is
steps in
correct.
this election.
That is correct.
Is the election in November or the primaries before that?
Early voting starts in 3 days.
Wow, you have a lot on your plate.
I've been pretty busy.
Okay, so come back in 2 weeks, folks, and we will give you the next installment of the Shelby County elections chapter.
All right.
Okay, so thank you so much for being here tonight. Again, our website, smartelections.us. And remember, this is what democracy looks like.
Good night, everybody.